about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I tell you, we shouldn't be scared. We shouldn't be deterred. But I think we need to be ready. When you look at the mass shooting that happened in another church this weekend at a restaurant in North Carolina, I think we have to have this awareness and this ready to fight back, because there are individuals in our midst that are absolutely crazy. North Carolina, a weekend shooting left 3 people dead, 5 others hurt at a North Carolina bar. It happened at 9:30 p.m. on Saturday at American Fish Company in Southport. 40-year-old Nigel Max Edge was in a boat on the water when he decided to open fire on the restaurant. Now, American Fish Company, pretty well-known restaurant, had live music going on, and the deck faces the water, so my guess is it was a pretty full deck. People want to sit on the deck. It was a beautiful evening, and we don't know how long he was sitting there waiting, but then he started shooting. District Attorney John David said a lot of the victims were on vacation. They were not Southport locals. We don't have any information yet on the victims' ages, genders, or names, but multiple shots were fired. And he was, I believe he has been detained. I think he had escorted American Idol star Kelly Pickler to the CMT Music Awards years ago. Not exactly sure what relationship he has, but this, I think this was like back in 2012. Not sure if they dated or he just escorted her, but why he would be sitting there deciding to shoot the restaurant on a Saturday night. It was apparently very well planned. They said premeditated. So he is now being charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 5 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 5 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill. As we get more information, we will keep you posted. In the meantime, we're still in shock by this Michigan church shooting, the Grand Blanc Township Church, LDS, where Thomas Jacob Sanford, 40-year-old, smashed his truck, allegedly, into the church, opens fire, sets the church on fire, kills at least 4 people. As people, from what I understand, were trying to run out from the flames, he was shooting them. First responders were able to get there and neutralize him really quickly. But unfortunately, we have multiple people dead, and we fear that there's more, as they're still looking for victims in the wreckage of the smoldering fire. Now, her son was an ex-Marine. Why he decided to take his pickup and smash it into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Michigan, why he wanted to shoot at a crowded Sunday service with kids, unclear. But his mom, interestingly, had shared a post. And it was kind of I don't know if it was she was resharing somebody else's post or if it was hers. And it's a message that kind of makes you wonder if she had issues with him. She said, people lack, or I don't want to say she said, but this was a post on her Facebook. People lack accountability. Then say, you could have talked to me. No, I couldn't. You don't listen. You deflect. You twist everything into an attack and then play the victim. Conversations with you aren't healing. They're exhausting, draining, and emotionally suffocating. Every time I try to speak, it feels like walking through a maze of blame where my words are used against me, my intentions questioned, and my emotions invalidated. I end up questioning myself, doubting my own perceptions, because nothing I say lands without being turned into some justification of your behavior. Now, this goes on. But, when I read this, I can't tell you how many times I've had people in my life where you think I could just sit and have a conversation, or we could go to lunch, or we can, hash it out. And the word twisting, the invalidating, the exhausting. I have people in my life where I try to talk to them and it is exhausting. And I want to help them. I want to clear the air. And everybody in media and on TV shows make it act like, okay, why don't we have a discussion? We're going to, make ourselves feel better. We'll hug it out. No. There are individuals in our lives who are really toxic. There are individuals in our lives with severe mental illness who want to hurt. Now, again, I have no idea if the mother, Brenda Waters Sanford, wrote this. But when I saw this, boy, did it, ring pretty familiar to people I've been, in my family. I feel like I need to avoid them because it's so exhausting to talk to them. You don't get anywhere. This attack yesterday happened at 10:25 a.m. in a very full, crowded church. Obviously, it was Sunday morning. Not sure who he was, what his motives were. I believe he served in the Iraq War. Allegedly, he was battling PTSD. But we do need to reconsider how we do security, how we arm ourselves, how we prepare for this. You look at the community near Flint, Michigan, or you look at this North Carolina Southport restaurant. It doesn't ring high risk, in terms of you need to protect yourself or consider, going here. This isn't where there's always drive-by shootings. And people attack their community for no reason. And I just assume there's going to be a shooting. And it's a sad reality we live in. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So many of you have been very, very anxious about this New York City mayor race. I am blown away at how this is affecting a lot of people in the way that it is. And it's partially because you have Zohran Mamdani leading resoundingly in a race when he has been alleged to have communistic, anti-Semitic, socialist, ICE, anti-police sentiment. And for the biggest city in the country and one of the most notable cities in the world to have a mayor that ends up getting elected not only by the skin of his teeth, but by potentially a huge resounding lead, makes people question where the country is going. And, as I've said before, not that many people voted in the primary. And even though polls are showing he's leading well, and when you have that much of a lead, it does seem to portend how he might do in the election. It doesn't mean he's 100% shoo-in. It's close, though. Some things will have to change, such as the people he's running against not splitting the vote. Well, this weekend, Eric Adams, current mayor Eric Adams, has left the race. He dropped out. He did so with a very heartfelt speech with a picture of his mom, his late mom, who I believe he also had when he announced his original run. And he didn't necessarily tell people who to vote for. So he didn't ask people to turn around and support one candidate versus another. However, he did speak out against the radical, more fringe sort of philosophies. And so, it seems obvious he's not going to be supporting Mamdani. Is he going to support Cuomo? Is he going to switch sides and promote Curtis Sliwa, who's running as the Republican candidate? Unsure. But most likely, if he was going to ask people to support one side, it would be Cuomo. Cuomo has the best chance of beating Mamdani, even though Cuomo was not very popular. And I was really surprised that he was the candidate that Democrats came up with to take on Mamdani. But there wasn't, I guess, a lot of other options. Mamdani's only 33 years old. He would be the city's youngest and most liberal mayor. And his promises of, free bus rides and government-run grocery stores and rent control. He's making a lot of promises that don't actually seem very, very practical. Not to mention, he's been very, vocal about, defund the police and other things that make people nervous. But I want to talk about this anxiety that people are having as it pertains to this. I get that this could represent a huge shift, but it's New York. New York does have very unique issues than other parts of the country. It's ridiculously expensive. So if you have voters that fall for what Mamdani is saying and say, well, he's charismatic, he's saying what we're all thinking, it's too expensive to live in New York, let's give him a shot, that doesn't necessarily mean the whole country agrees with what he does or what he is advocating for. Can he really turn New York into a city that is affordable? San Francisco can't do it. LA can't do it. It's not going to happen. Are government-run grocery stores effective and popular? Well, ask those who visited the one in Kansas City. They said no. Shelves bare, not a lot of choices. It wasn't worth their time. What about government-run buses where you, or it's free, where you don't have to pay to get on a bus? We're hearing what ends up happening is they become overcrowded and people live on the bus. You have homeless people finding shelter on the bus, and New York City does have constantly plagued with not having homes and shelter for their homeless. So I don't know how popular it's going to be. But once somebody gets into office, they never leave. So Eric Adams leaving does not mean that Andrew Cuomo is going to get all the support. In fact, I think a Fox poll showed it only bumped him up 4 extra points. So will Curtis Sliwa bow out? Probably not. And, people have asked me, why are Republicans going to vote for Curtis Sliwa, knowing that that's going to take away from Andrew Cuomo and possibly put Mamdani in the mayor's seat? Well, you have a lot of individuals where they, politics is their religion. So no matter what, they're not going to go against their religion. And they will only vote R, or they will only vote D. Now, I love the independent thinkers that are, look, I'm going to vote for the best candidate. But you have individuals that say, look, this is public record. People can look and see who I voted for. Anytime you see these mass shootings or these crimes, they go back and they go, oh, yeah, this person voted. And they registered as this, and they voted in the Democratic primary. Well, if they voted in the Democratic primary, then, that suggests they're Democrat. There's not a lot of privacy. And I think you have some individuals that feel like they're going to be called out, or they're going to be accused of being a hypocrite. And I know Curtis. He's a good guy. I think he would be a fantastic mayor. But, telling somebody, well, don't vote for him because the vote's not going to count and it's not going to go anywhere. When somebody goes up to a poll to vote, you really want to feel that vote is going to make a difference. Now, I voted in enough elections to know that some votes make a difference, some votes don't. And you have a very split race with Cuomo, Sliwa now, and Mamdani. And Mamdani is going to be a shoo-in if Cuomo and Sliwa split the votes. If Sliwa's out, Cuomo has a chance. The problem is there's many individuals that don't like Andrew Cuomo. The COVID debacle, he was not a popular governor, and he's not very popular running for mayor. And Cuomo's not going to bow out and let everybody get behind Sliwa. And Republicans struggle to vote in. Now, I think it hasn't been since Rudy Giuliani to vote in a Republican. And so how I look at it, because I see people stress so much over elections and over like what's going on in New Jersey with the governor race. And you need to be able to go on with your own life. You can't be losing sleep. I think we all have a lot of stress in our lives, and we're losing sleep. It gives them even more of an advantage than they already have. When these candidates cause us to lose sleep, they're winning when they shouldn't have that win. Ruining your day, making you grumpy, having you fight with your family members. If New York decides to go socialized or communistic, which I don't think is going to be practical and I don't think is going to be successful, then I think New York City is going to be people will, you'd think they would learn from their mistakes and go, look, you can't have somebody just promise all this BS. It's not going to work. Can't just say the rich have to pay. The rich have to pay. Even if the rich pay another $50,000 or $100,000 or even an extra $1 million, there's not enough rich people to pay for all the stuff that these candidates are any of the candidates talking about free healthcare, opening up medical clinics and STI clinics and more shelters for the homeless, and that takes money. But instead, anti-ICE demonstrations. I think Mom Dummy wants to help fund, allegedly. And if this is what New Yorkers want, and people say, but Dahlia, the problem is that they don't have a choice. If the choice is split, they're not voting for who they want. They can vote. And from what we understand, many individuals don't go and vote. I really do believe that if all the New Yorkers voted, I don't think they would be voting for Mamdani. 1-877-Doc-Dali. Don't go away. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Doc-Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So many people have been critical of conservatives for bringing up the transgender ideology as a possible profiling or a common denominator to some of the mass shootings. And I understand the criticism and I understand the concern. And I also think that conservatives are being misunderstood in terms of that. Somebody who suffers from gender dysphoria, true gender dysphoria, is struggling, needs support, needs definite assistance. And every transgender individual I know didn't have a malicious or violent bone in their body. However, there have been some mass shooters, among the many mass shootings that sadly has plagued our country, who ended up identifying as transgender, such as the alleged shooter that killed 2 children and injured 21 others at the Minneapolis Catholic Church on August 27th, as well as some other unfortunate shootings. Apparently, I think there's been 5 in the government database that included a March 2023 shooting at a school in Nashville, a 2022 shooting at a gay bar in Colorado Springs, a May 2019 shooting at a Highlands Ranch, Colorado school, 2018 shooting at a warehouse in Aberdeen, Maryland. And again, as a physician, somebody who is transgender is not violent by nature. However, where this is coming up, and the reason why this discussion, and we need to be very careful about where we go with this, is whenever there is a mass shooting or somebody decides to, when you think they're human, when you think they have ethics, when you think they're of sound mind, decides to take their truck and run into a Church of Latter-day Saints and set it on fire and shoot at kids and adults who are praying. When you see things like this, or the North Carolina shooter that shot at people just trying to enjoy a Saturday night, you immediately, after you grieve and you go through the different stages of, deniability and anger and all that, you start intellectualizing as to, well, how can we prevent this? I need to do something different. And you'll see when somebody loses a child or they lose somebody to cancer, they immediately, not everybody, but one thing that I think is actually very therapeutic is I'm going to raise money for cancer research, or I am going to speak out against drunk driving, or I'm going to, help others find their kidnapped child. And so people feel like they need to do something. And so when a mass shooting happens and they hear, okay, this is somebody who allegedly, fit a certain profile, they're like, well, this is what we could do. If we identify, we want to identify the next shooter. And so they look at, okay, well, how can we identify him? Is it a certain look? Is it a certain creed? Is it a certain, and I think we're all aware that it's anybody at any time decides to just lose it. But the topic of somebody who could be transgender who then becomes a mass shooter, and again, they're rare. Most mass shooters are not. Does though bring up the topic where if we are starting to, shall we say, encourage people to doubt their gender and make promises that they can be any gender they want, are we setting them up for disaster? Are we setting them up for hate? Are we going to indirectly cause more anguish in somebody who's already struggling? I mean, I've said this many times before. I could not stand the fact that there were gay conversion classes that existed to take a child or adolescent or somebody and force them to be somebody they're not. Those were cruel. They were damaging. They worsened mental health. And we made some great progress as physicians and as society, saying quit trying to convert somebody to something they're not and claim that you're going to, reverse their homosexuality or it's a lie. You're not going to. The gay conversion classes are a hoax. Stop it already. Yet within a decade, we then change course and say, you know what? We can make you a girl. We can make you a boy. That's just cruel. Now, I get that a lot of us do not like the stereotypes. I could not stand where, well, I'm a girl, so I have to wear pink and I have to wear a dress. I didn't want to wear a dress. Okay, I wanted to play with the guys. I wanted to watch football. I wanted to do sports. And I didn't like the term tomboy because, I did like being a girl, but I just wanted to do the boy stuff. I couldn't stand that. Okay, well, these are the girl toys. These are the boy toys. My brother got to play with Transformers. Those were way more cool. So I support getting rid of the stereotypes of what's girly and what's guy. Now, I watch more football and sports than any other guy in my family, but that doesn't mean they're less men. So I think the stereotypes are stupid and we need to get rid of them. But you can't tell somebody who has a penis and testicles or somebody who has ovaries and a uterus that we are going to be able to do surgery and hormones and therapy and turn you into something you're not. And this is what we're doing. And a concern that I think society is having is what happens when these individuals feel they were lied to or duped. And they thought that they were going to look like Beyonce or Taylor Swift or Glenn Powell or Michael Fassbender, because I think Michael Fassbender's hot. And then they turn out not. We need to be realistic with individuals. And we need to, share with them. And society is, before it's, well, you're a girl, you're a guy, this is who you are. Some people are born with some different chromosome combinations. Some may be born hermaphrodite. Now we call it intersex, where they have both male and female genitalia. And they end up having surgery to remove the testicles because they're undescended and could sadly become cancerous. And we can't screen for them, and it's a lot more difficult. So usually the testicles get removed, and we raise somebody who's intersex female because they have a much easier time being able to blend into society and not be ridiculed or shamed, etc. But for the most part, we have boys and we have girls. And when you have Supreme Court justices that can't define it, it starts to make you wonder if we are putting people at risk of failure and of disappointment. And if somebody did go through, we've seen people who are detransitioning, pretty ticked off that they lost their breasts. They went through painful therapies, hormone therapies, put themselves at risk for blood clots, and they never turned into what they thought they could turn into. So we don't want to worsen somebody's anguish that they're going through. I don't believe that would turn them into a mass shooter, though. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So some feedback I'm getting from many of you who now have telemedicine, shall we say, benefits with your insurance. Some of you are really loving it. Some of you are a little frustrated because you're spending money on a telemedicine visit only to be told that you need to go in and get seen, and you feel like you lost money. And so when do you use telemedicine? When do you just go to urgent care? When should you go to ER? And so I want to spend a few minutes. I always teach you guys, when to go to urgent care versus ER. Now, obviously, if this is something that's life-threatening, you are in severe pain, you might need imaging or a scan, you're worried about stroke, heart attack, appendicitis, rectal prolapse, you're bleeding internally, you're bleeding rectally, you're vomiting blood, you're coughing up blood, most likely I would recommend an ER. Whereas, with urgent care, there's a lot of things urgent cares can do in terms of coughs and colds, in terms of putting in stitches, doing x-rays to see if you have a broken ankle, things like that. If your shoulder's dislocated, some of us at urgent care were able to put it back in, but I would probably recommend ER. But with telemedicine, it's a little tricky. For some of us, we have $0 copay. So you have nothing to lose except time if you're able to have a non-emergent issue and contact somebody with telemedicine. But some of you are telling me you're spending $60, $80, $100 for a telemedicine visit only to be told, we can't help you. So how not to lose money? Well, first and foremost, one is understand your benefits. So check with your insurance. Sometimes insurance says, yeah, we offer telemedicine at low cost. Find out exactly what that cost is. Number two is all telemedicine companies have a website on what they treat. So many telemedicine companies will not treat a UTI in a male. So if you're a guy that's having burning when you pee and you're like, well, I think it's a UTI, there's guidelines where these doctors cannot treat you. They're going to send you to urgent care to do a urine test and then follow up with a urologist. So read the website because it'll say UTIs in male. We don't see. Or also, sorry, my nose is running. Also, pediatric UTIs. A lot of these companies cannot take care of pediatric UTIs. If you have a child going, yeah, I think they have a UTI, they're going to want it confirmed. Certain STD testing or screening. Some telemedicine companies can do labs, some can't. I know there's a lot of frustration where many people are calling up the telemedicine company saying, yeah, I think my child broke her hand. So I want you to order a test. And some companies are starting to do that, but others aren't. So you need to be aware. And if they say, well, if you think you have a broken hand, we need you to go to urgent care or ER, get an x-ray, and then get splinted or possibly casted, or you might even need to go into surgery, many telemedicine companies won't go there because you need an in-person doctor. So like I said, do your research and review what the telemedicine company offers. Yes, there are some like ear infections. Most telemedicine companies will not do infant ear infections over the phone. There's like an age limit of the child has to be over 4 or over 3 years old. So if you have an infant with an ear infection, I get that there's some doctors that might say, oh, you know what, I'll just do it. And I notice a lot of people, they're aware, but they think they'll get lucky. Mind you, if you're spending the money, there's rules. There's a better chance than not that you're going to be referred out. But now we're coming up with flu season and COVID. And this is getting tricky because there's doctors of two schools of thought. Some doctors are like, well, if you tell me you think you have the flu, you're exposed to the flu, let me just give you the flu medicine, we're good, and then move on. You have other doctors that are concerned that we're going to go back into another shortage, where the FDA had to come in and say, look, can you confirm first? This was a few years back where we ran out of Tamiflu before flu season even started because people were calling up telemedicine in the late summer, early fall, saying, I have flu. And it actually was COVID or something else. And so what I'm seeing is there's a lot of pushback from physicians, telemedicine physicians saying, look, somebody says they were exposed to the flu. How do I know, what? I mean, everybody and their mother could say, oh, yeah, I have the flu. But the person doesn't have a high fever. They have a low-grade fever. They're feeling achy. What if it's COVID? Not to mention these doctors are concerned about liability because if you miss the window to be treated for COVID because they improperly treated you for flu, and now you start getting COVID-related sequelae or long COVID, they could be liable. So what I recommend, because you might get some doctors saying, hey, if you think it's flu, I believe you. You might be lucky in that respect. But if you have a doctor saying, look, we need to confirm this, you might want to consider doing testing. And now we actually have the ability to test for flu at home. There's a lot of tests that will test for flu, COVID. Those are very helpful because if you do have a physician that's worried about liability, now you're uploading an image of your test, or you could take your test in front of them on the video saying, look, I'm testing. These are the results. Look, you're watching it as I go. And so maybe, having testing. One issue, though, I'm seeing is these at-home COVID tests are not always picking up COVID. And if the at-home COVID tests are designed for the previous strains, these new strains, Stratum, and these other ones that are out and about, just because you have a negative COVID test does not mean the doctor's going to diagnose you with flu. So you might want to have that combo test. Another thing I notice a lot of women are doing is they think they have a UTI, they have burning, so they do an at-home urine test, and one of the metrics is positive, the other is negative. For some doctors, they might say, no, I'm not convinced. Your leukocytes are positive, but that could be because of a vaginal infection or STD, but your nitrites are negative. Now, just because you have a urinalysis with nitrites negative doesn't mean you're not having a UTI. You still could be, but you might have a doctor saying, I need more information. So I know some of you are like, well, how do I know if I'm going to get a doctor that's going to be easy or if I'm going to, well, this is why there's an advantage to you having a primary care provider, somebody who knows you. When you're getting a doctor you've never met and you're starting from scratch, it might be a crapshoot. And I have patients call up going, look, I know I have a staph infection. Just give me medicine for staph. I know that's what this is. Or I know I'm having a yeast infection. Are you having any discharge? No. Are you having itching? No. But I have pain. And I know that's what, well, if your gynecologist has tested you and the gynecologist is comfortable with that, they might be able to. But when you have a doctor who, could get sued or lose their license, they're going to be more hesitant. So, another thing you might want to think about is how to minimize your risk as well as theirs. So let's say you have a condition that your doctor is very lenient and liberal on in terms of giving you treatment, and that's the treatment you want. You might want to upload your records. You might want to upload, what the diagnosis is. A big thing that is causing a lot of anxiety among doctors is diverticulitis. Somebody calls up saying they have lower abdominal pain. So they want 2 antibiotics for diverticulitis. And many telemedicine companies are treating diverticulitis. But you'll have some doctors going, whoa, this could be something else. In fact, I did that with one patient where I'm like, this might not be diverticulitis. I want you getting checked out. He writes back thanking me, saying you saved my life because I had a blood clot. I had thought he might have had COVID because he was coughing. And he got tested for COVID. He was positive for COVID, and it caused a blood clot in his renal vein. He never had diverticulitis. So it might help for you to also upload records and say, look, if you need this before you make a decision, this is what I suffer with, and this is what my doctor does. But again, nothing is as effective as having a doctor who knows you and a primary care provider. So make sure you get one of those. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by Financial Fitness Show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.